Oh, outstanding. Thank you so much. Yeah, after a few months, I'm still sort of figuring this one out myself. Zoom is not my native platform. Um, so I work with waste prevention and green building, the City of Eugene's planning and development department. And our program essentially manages solid waste and recycling in the City of Eugene, as well as waste prevention, a number of allied programs. My role is, amongst other things, is to do outreach around recycling and keep everybody up to speed on what's happening with that. I'm gonna try to share my screen and I will see if I can pull this off. It's gonna take me just a second, so everybody please bear with. Share screen. How's that looking? Everybody see okay?
Something's going on, yeah, got it.
Okay, outstanding. So what I'm gonna do, hopefully, oh, this is static, isn't it? Oh, there we go. Okay. I'll just make this go away. We'll get this figured out. All right, here we go. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that okay. And I'm gonna try to make this as brief as possible because I want to be able to field some questions. My purpose in coming here this evening is really to introduce myself and our program for those of you who are not familiar, and to invite questions and further engagement. At the bottom of the screen, if everybody can see it, and I can't see you all, so I'm hoping that I'm getting some thumbs up here. Hopefully somebody will holler. It's a shortcut to our website, www.eugenerecycles.org. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw that out periodically over the course of the next 30 minutes or so, because that's the easiest way to reach us. If you're going, via the internet, we have phones, of course, and all of our contact information, all the staff in the program, all four of us, you can find by going there. So if anybody ever has questions, we love talking to people. We love reaching, interacting with folks in the community and sharing information. So let me go ahead and hit down here. Tonight, I'm going to go over just a few of our program areas. As I mentioned, we oversee, amongst other things, solid waste and recycling in the city. We set rates and standards. And we do a whole lot of other things. I'm just going to talk about a few of our waste prevention oriented or recycling oriented program areas tonight. Those include recycling, Thundercans, food waste collection, the always popular food waste collection, and some reuse resources and repair resources which are out there in the community, which we know folks would love to hear about. So to begin with, this is our website. This is the, let me back up just a second here. On the right there, you can see a screenshot of our website. This is the landing page where if you enter www.eugenerecycles.org, this is where you land. And over on the left are some broad categories of our program areas, including residential, business, community, oriented programs, and then some stuff around rules, rates, and regulations where you're going to find the Thundercans information. So if you were to click on residential, the next screen that you would see is this. The photo actually changes periodically, and I was trying to capture one of our food waste images because I thought it was really cool looking. Over there on the left, there's more menus and pages that you can look at for specific information about recycling, food waste collection, backyard composting, and a bunch of more really waste prevention education oriented contents to be found there. So I encourage anybody who wants to know more, after this brief introduction, to go ahead and explore our website and look at those menus. So first off, we're gonna talk about recycling, and hopefully I spelled commingle right. I always mess that word up. In our system in Eugene, for Eugene residential and commercial customers, we use commingle recycling. And so that means, and everybody should be familiar with this at this point, all of the items that are recyclable go in one bin altogether. Items which are not specified as recyclable on our flyer and the flyers that your haulers provide to you and that you find on our website are not considered recyclable. And this becomes really important. I'll talk about this in just a second. I do want to go ahead and point out that this flyer is current as of, this was brought up to speed or made current as of 2018. So this is the latest and greatest information that we provide to the citizens of Eugene, or residents of Eugene rather. Really important thing to note here, this part about if something's not on here as listed as recyclable, it doesn't go in the recycling. That's the thing that we try to get out as much as possible to residential and commercial customers in Eugene. If in doubt, you don't want to put an item in the recycling. It causes contamination and can lead to recycling shipments being rejected. Some of those materials end up going where we don't want them to go, which is out of the recycling stream, out of the waste stream, and into places like the ocean. So it's really important. If you don't know that an item belongs in the recycling, don't put it there. And again, there's our website, eugenerecycles.org. One of the items that is an exception to the, yes, it goes in the recycling. If it's recycling, it goes in the commingle bin is, of course, glass items that go in the glass bin. Everybody knows bottles and jars, no lids. Importantly, no window glass, mirror glass, household items like vases, art glass, and nothing broken. That's just a safety issue. It's a really big deal. I'm gonna go ahead and hit escape here and see where I'm at. Okay. And I trust that somebody's going to be able to. Kate, can you do me a huge favor? Can you tell me, is everybody getting this okay? Because I'm seeing my screen. I'm not necessarily seeing what other people are seeing.
We're seeing other recycling resources, Lane County, WMD.
Outstanding. Okay. So in addition to our program's materials, the flyer and other information that you can find on our website, there are some other recycling resources in Lane County, and a lot of them focus around Lane County's waste management division, which is the waste shed that we belong to. There is a lot of information to be found on their website, and you can find that by entering WasteWise Lane County in your search engine. That's their phone number, and it's really important to note those are two really critical points of entry for engaging with this agency, with this organization. You want to ask the questions in advance before you start down the road of like hauling something to a transfer station or something. You want to know before you do that. They have a really great online lookup tool, which there's a screenshot on the right side of the screen from that. Hopefully they're okay with it. We're friends. That's great because down at the bottom there, you can enter a specific item. Say, I actually have it open over here on my other screen. If you were curious about, say, plastic tubs, you can enter plastic tubs down at the bottom there, and you can find resources for recycling them because, again, those are not recyclable in the commingle recycling. There's information on their website about the Community Plastics Collection Program, also very popular right now. Those are intermittent, and that's one that you really, really do need to check that program website really carefully to know where and when. They also have a social media, Facebook, where you can find information about that as well. There's information there about the Household Hazardous Waste Program. There's a lot of items which you can't throw away. They have to go to household hazardous waste. Some of those things are fluorescent light bulbs, solvents, electronics. Those are things that shouldn't be thrown in the regular trash or recycling for that matter, never in the recycling. There's information about the Master Recyclers Program, and then there's also waste prevention resources. which I really don't have time to get into, which is a pity because they're wonderful. There's really great food waste prevention tools. There's a link to the online and print or an online recycling guide for Lane County, which is it's an encyclopedia of recycling resources. So I encourage anybody who's interested to check this out. And again, the contact information at the top, search for Wastewise Lane County or call that phone number. So from recycling to trash cans, the Thundercans campaign, which I usually lead off with in the summer, reaching out to groups like yours. This is a public information campaign which is designed to share information about the 24-hour rule with the residents of Eugene. So essentially your waste containers can't stay out on the curb past midnight on the day of pickup. So you can put them out, you can actually put them out 29 hours. It's a 29-hour rule, but we're not gonna quibble. You can put them out 7 p.m. the night before collection, and then they need to be back in off the street by midnight of the day of collection. It also includes priority placement information, which is it's a little complex and it's really specific to different situations. So I'm gonna talk about that in just a second. This is a flyer that goes out, which we share via generally print, but also electronic, which just has a little bit of information about the Thundercans campaign. The Thundercans is supposed to be the sound that the cans make rolling across the sidewalk. We just like to think of that as harbinger of good things, which is the cans going back where they belong after they're empty. There's a website there. There's also my contact information. And again, that's just going to keep on showing up over the course of this presentation. Placement is involved. So there's different options depending on the situation, depending on where you live. You might have a parking strip, you might not. It just sort of depends. And depending on what situation you have, there's an order of priorities for how to put those cans out. The key is maintaining safety, not interfering with the flow of traffic or bike lanes or any other kinds of uses which are not compatible with having a trash can out there. So I'm not going to prescribe anything for anybody in particular other than to say, check out our website, look at the Thundercans page if you need to know. The information is right there. And again, there's that information all over again. I'm happy to answer questions, so you can reach out to me via email. All of our emails at the city are, our first initial last name at eugene.-or.gov. And then there's eugenerecycles.org, of course. From trash cans and waste cans to food waste collection. So for those of you who are residents of City of Eugene who have cans and yard waste bins, you are able to participate in the city's residential food waste collection program, which is wonderful. It allows folks with residential service to put food waste in their yard waste or yard debris cans. So this program became citywide in 2019, about a year and change ago. Wildly popular, seems to be working out really well. It was based on a lot of research and a 3-year pilot in certain neighborhoods in Eugene. So we have a track record of success and we're really happy with where it's gone. We actually won an award from the League of Oregon Cities this summer, award for excellence for this program, this in the commercial Love Food Not Waste program. So again, we're happy to answer questions about this at any point.
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
The food waste collection, this is Catherine.
Yes.
One, I've been hesitant because it seems to me that a lot of the bins are going to get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. And then with our terrible rat population explosion, if people aren't careful with these bins, we're encouraging this. And how have you been dealing with those issues?
So Catherine, thank you so much for the question. And I think the key word there is careful. This requires a certain amount of attention, but it's really, it's a continuation of existing service to a certain extent. essentially what you're doing is you're taking material that you would put in your trash and you're just putting it in your waste, your yard debris bin. So we have some, on our website, we have some frequently asked questions, and we have some very specific recommendations for things that you can do to cut down on what we call what some folks call the ick factor, odor or, other things that we don't like. There's a few kind of critical things that I'll just go ahead and point out here. And I skipped over a slide, but this is really important. You want to keep your lid closed at all times. The containers that the yard debris goes in are equally, if not stronger than the garbage bins. So long as that lid is closed, you shouldn't have an issue, shouldn't have. We also recommend, if you can hold off on putting the material into the bin until collection day or close to collection day, if you put it in your fridge, in a sealable container, Tupperware, that kind of thing, that goes a long ways. Mixing thoroughly with yard debris, yard waste, leaves, grass, clippings, depending on the season. That's really helpful. Baking soda can be helpful for cutting down on the odor. And one really critical thing that we're trying to make sure that folks understand is that thing gets picked up regardless. So that truck goes by your house, every 2 weeks, regardless of whether that can's out there, and it doesn't cost you anything to have it picked up. So don't hoard it. Don't hang on to it until it's, it's totally full. You want to get it out there every 2 weeks and let it get picked up. Does that address some of those questions that you had?
It does cost, though. We do get charged, right? It's not free.
It's rolled into the existing yard waste debris fee. And I'm not the subject area expert on that, so I couldn't tell you what that is. But if you have that existing service, and I think that's it's just offered as a matter of course to residential customers, it shouldn't be any additional charge. That's my best understanding. Again, I'm not the subject area expert here. Does that address that question?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. And again, if anybody wants to follow up with more specific questions, feel free to reach out. If you need to know like the real details, the hows and whys, and the how muches, you can always contact us, eugenerecycles.org, or my email. I'm not the program lead on this program, but I field a lot of questions. I just want to back up really quickly here and let me take a look at the time. I think I'm doing okay. These are items which can go into the food waste system. And they include some things which you wouldn't put in a traditional backyard compost situation, such as meat, bones, dairy products. You can put those things in with your yard debris in that container. The key is that you don't want to put anything other than incidental amounts of liquid. So no milk, but cheese or like cottage cheese or that kind of thing is fine. And no large amounts of grease either. It compromises the system. And then most importantly of all, and this is one that, we get questions regularly from folks about certain types of paper products and certain types of compostable serviceware or other, plastic products. None of those are permitted in the food waste collection system at this time. And there's a number of reasons why, but it comes down to requests from the actual processors of the material who didn't want to see that material coming in anymore. And I'll be happy to answer questions about that because I know that there's going to be some inevitably. And there's a little bit more contact information for the program again. So A. Reed down at the bottom there, that's Anna Reed's email address. Anna's the point of contact for this particular program. But again, I function as, in answering questions to the public. So reach out to either of us, eugenerecycles.org. And then there's that long website, which is hard to say, if not read. eugenerecycles.org, it takes you to the same place. Okay, from food waste collection to reuse. So I'm not going to go get into this too much because there's just a ton of information about reuse, and in this community in particular out there. There's a number of different organizations which sort of specialize, nonprofits and the like, that specialize in receiving and reselling reusable materials. Those include, the usual suspects, and everybody should be familiar with those in our community. We always encourage folks to engage with those organizations. The work that they do is really important for keeping quality reusable materials out of landfill and in service. So can't say enough about them. One thing I will say is always call or check their websites before you go visit, both to donate and to shop, and just to know like what they expect of you when you get there, what you can expect of them. If anybody has ever seen, I don't know, everybody's ever tried to donate something to an organization that couldn't, for some reason, take it, it's a bummer. So before you make that trip, make sure you call or check their website. A really great source of information is going back again to Wastewise Lane County. There's their website. And again, it's long and hard to say, but if you just search like Wastewise Lane County, the recycling guide has a lot of great information, and the lookup tool also will point you to some reuse organizations. And then their social media is always fun. So they have Facebook, and I love checking it out because they're always coming up with interesting or pulling in interesting information about reuse and waste prevention, really specifically waste prevention resources. So from reuse, and I can field more questions about this as well, to fix it, which I understood y'all were interested in, some of the fix it resources in our community. So we have, for about 4 years now, we've been holding fix it or repair fairs through our program. And within the last year or so, we started partnering with Toolbox Project, the nonprofit or tool lending library, to offer some of these, to hold some of these events. And with the pivot, a lot of them are, all of them at this point are virtual, they're online, and they're just amazingly creative. The way that this organization in particular has engaged with platforms like Zoom and some others and YouTube is great. So I strongly encourage anybody who's interested in repair tutorials or knowing more about repair resources to check those out. Again, that's Toolbox Project. Our website, you can find it. It's pretty close to the front when you go to eugenerecycles.org. Fix It Lane County is an initiative of Wastewise Lane County, which is an active list or bank of repair-oriented businesses in Lane County that folks can go to, and they're sorted by the type of item that somebody's interested in getting repaired. So it's a good way to find out, what businesses are out there, which might be available to help you out with this. Lykias, which I'm just becoming familiar with, video production outfit and media company, has Spanish language videos, which we're just starting to promote through our social media because they're dynamite. They're geared towards Latinx and Spanish speaking community in Lane County, but they're fun for anybody who's has like the language facility to check out. So I encourage you all to check them out as well. And that brings me to the end of this little ramble, 7:30, not too bad. Again, there's my contact information. I also want to point out our social media platforms. Our pages are down there at the bottom. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We try and keep them active and up to date, and I encourage anybody who's interested to check them out as well. There's my email, and then the shortcut to our website, eugenerecycles.org. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and take some questions. Kate, do we have time for some more questions?
Unmute, please.
Oh, sorry. I said absolutely. Let them rip.
I do it too. I do it too. Yeah, anybody has a question. So I will say at the get-go, I'm not going to be able to answer every single question. It happens. But again, hopefully you saw enough of my and heard enough of my going on about our contact information that if I can't answer a question, please reach out. I'm happy to field phone calls, emails, etc. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find the person who does. That's my commitment to you.
Is there a rolling thunder squad?
I'm sorry, was that Tim?
That was Tim. Yeah, sorry, I don't have.
Tim, I take it you're familiar with the Veggie Mob.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. I wish I had a photo of the Veggie Mob to show you all, but in the spirit of engaging with the community, we have a bunch of costumes which program staff wear from time to time at public events when it's appropriate to promote the cause of food waste collection, because every pound that doesn't go into the landfill is some amount, and I'm not 100% sure, of methane, which doesn't get emitted, and valuable nutrients which don't get wasted. Thanks, Tim. No, not that I know. That's a great idea, though. I might go ahead and field that one at the next program meeting.
Jim New, your hand's up.
Yes, I was just going to say thank you, Ben, for that. It was really good. I don't know if everybody knows that Lane County has a climate action plan that they are formulating right now. And one of the things I just wanted to bring up was this Tuesday, December 8th at 1:30, they are going to be doing the Lane County Board of Commissioners will be hearing a greenhouse gas inventory from the climate strategist that works for the county. And Short Mountain Landfill is one of the contributors of 187,000 metric tons of CO2 a year. So reducing waste is a huge thing for the county and achieving their goals of reducing their carbon footprint for their climate action plan. So that'll be next Tuesday at 1:30 if anybody's interested. But the county has a goal to reduce their organics down to 63%. So that's huge that people contribute their organic material into the waste stream. So just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, Ben, I was questioning whether the community gardens would have access to that product, the final compost product.
The food not waste product.
Yeah.
George, I have to be honest with you. I know that at least one of the processors donates or sells at reduced cost that product, the Love Food Not Waste product, to schools in the 4J and Bethel district. So there has been some, I don't know, philanthropic movement there. I don't know. I'm not the person.
Okay, so where would we get an answer to that?
Okay, so for use in community gardens.
Correct.
I think that's a question that I would have to take upstairs. Honestly, I would have to find out.
Great. If you could do that, Ben, that'd be great. Thank you.
Somebody could reach out directly to, the processors. But it's, let me go ahead and check in about that. And is George?
That's George, yep.
George, if you want to go ahead and send me an email. So if you're comfortable with that, to stimulate this question. And that way I'm not sure who I would report that back to. Would that be you?
You could send it back to me, and I could, we could put the information on the website for our community organization, if that's helpful to answer from answered questions, or you could communicate with George directly. Okay.
And again, I don't know what the answer to that question is. I'm talking about, what I have seen in the past and what I know of. I couldn't say for sure because, I just couldn't say for sure, whether that would be something that they would be able to do. But let me go ahead and follow up with the rest of my team and find out what information I can. And George, I will get back to you directly.
Jim, your hand's up again.
I'm actually making myself a note now.
Sorry, I forgot to lower it.
Oh, Ben, I have a question about methane digestion and whether or how the city's considering maybe using that as a tool.
I would be speaking outside of my lane, essentially.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that question. I know that Short Mountain at the county level has a certain capacity for methane capture. I'm not sure what they use that for. Again, I would be speaking outside of my lane.
Okay.
Yeah. The county does generate electricity at the landfill from the methane. There's actually a cogeneration system there, so they generate electricity from it.
Oh, very cool.
But that wouldn't apply to this material that goes to the in this program, because that doesn't go to the landfill.
I would think COVID would be complicating everything.
Sorry?
Ben, I know that you said you can't put broken glass in curbside recycling, but it used to be that you could take it to if you took it to the Glenwood transfer station, you could recycle it there. Is that, I mean, are there things like that you might have that you can't put in your curbside, but that doesn't mean they have to go in the trash if you're willing to go the extra mile to make sure they don't end up in the landfill?
So broken glass to Glenwood, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't know that you couldn't, but that's one of those situations where I would say call that number before you take it down there. Because again, it would be, you'd be brokenhearted having a tote full of glass. The reason that we don't want that in the curbside totes is it's a safety issue. As soon as it goes in that truck, it's probably going to get broken or it might get broken. But in the meantime, if somebody's handling it, that's why you don't want broken glass in that tote. You might be able to recycle it at the transfer station, but again, I don't know. 682-4120. The actual staff at the transfer station can probably answer that question in a heartbeat. That's a new one, right?
Jim, your hand's up.
Yeah, just to follow up, Kate, on your question about the methane digester, they are considering that in their new plan, but it's very costly, and they're hoping that people will recycle their organics more so that they don't have to install a methane digester there at the landfill.
Okay. And is there any information about new plastics recycling coming online locally? I mean, I think a lot of my understanding is a lot of shift in what was considered curbside recyclable changed due to China not accepting a lot of our plastics anymore. And so I would assume that might spur local generation of businesses to find ways to use that product. Is that something that you're seeing happen at all, or?
I couldn't speak to that locally. I know at the state level, the Department of Environmental Quality has been looking really hard and working over the last couple of years, specifically around this issue, trying to figure out how to retool the recycling system in our state. To be more efficient, to be more effective. And there's a ton of information which is available on their website. So if you were to go to the DEQ's website, the Recycling Steering Committee and the modernization of the recycling system is something that they're working actively on. So I'd encourage anybody who really wants to know, take a deep dive into this. And it is, I mean, I've sat through a couple of, public meetings and tried to absorb, and, from this non-technical guy's perspective, it's fascinating, but there's a ton of information. So check out the DEQ.
Mary, your hand's up.
Yeah, this is not for Ben, this is for everybody else. I have 1 million Nancy's yogurt containers. Does anyone know if they are taking them again? Because I know they started and stopped. Does anyone know where I can get rid of them? That's a no, it sounds like.
I will go ahead and throw out, Mary, if you're okay with it, the Lane County's Community Plastics Collection Program, they used to do the roundups, the plastic roundups, and then they did them a little less frequently and through, specific, standalone events. So what I would suggest is if you're interested, and I think what you're doing right now is really great, which is reaching out to the community and saying, hey, does anybody have a source, or does anybody know where this can go? That's one, on an ongoing basis to check the Community Plastics Collection Program at Lane County to find out what's happening out there.
Okay.
There's an organization out of Cottage Grove called Eco Generation that was doing them for a while, and they were doing them at times at city community centers. And I think that's discontinued. I don't think that they're doing any currently, but that would be another one to watch for. And that information would be found at the Community Plastics Collection Program webpage as well.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely, thank you.
Heaven only knows how COVID complicates all of this.
Yep.
I hope that was for the room, because I don't know that. It's not my program area. Not my lane.
Jim, your hand's back up.
Yeah, just to add to the question about the waste, the plastic waste, the Sustainability Commission formed a reduced single-use plastic subcommittee, and they're looking into that issue. It probably will be a few months before they come up with anything, because they're researching a lot of things. But if you want to go, they have a meeting the third Wednesday, I believe it is, at 5:30 of the month, and they do subcommittee updates on that. So you could find out more about that, or just email them at the Sustainability Commission for the City of Eugene.
I have one other question, Ben. At the beginning, you said your job was about waste prevention and green building. Can you tell us a little bit about the green building part of your job? Because we are working on our neighborhood planning project out here, and green building and green infrastructure is a lot of what we're talking about. And so if you could give us a little primer on that, that would be interesting.
Hey, I'm gonna have to punt on this one. It's not my program area.
Oh.
I hate to keep saying that. The green building is really important, and I appreciate hearing the question. So my teammates, Devron would probably be the person to connect you with there. If you look at our webpage, you'll find contact information to the green building section. We do have some programs out there. So there's a really robust construction materials recovery program that we've partnered with Bring Recycling on to provide training, technical support to the building community to divert materials. And that's where I get kind of close to it, because again, it's about waste prevention and recycling reuse. Green building is, in the past, has been really focused on, as my understanding, more program level initiatives. But you might check our website for the appropriate contact person.
Thanks. Any other questions, people? Oh, Louis.
I hate to go out on an I don't know.
No, you're good, Louis.
So in light of that answer, based on some of the questions we've had that you haven't been able to answer, is there somebody else who we should invite to a future meeting?
I think it would sort of depend on the specific question. So green building, I can't really speak to green building outside of, the general, program stuff. I was just probably Devron Musgrave, waste prevention analyst, might be able to direct you to more information. Might be have more information. I don't want to volunteer anybody. Again, if you look at our website and you look at the the program contacts, that's probably the best way to go about doing that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Anything else for Ben? Jim.
Yeah, just if you Google green City of Eugene green building program, it has a whole web page and it breaks down all the different individual aspects that you probably could get your questions answered on right there.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, if I could just add to that, that's a really good observation that our website is pretty robust. There's a lot of information to be found there. And I don't want to be cute about it, but, you know, looking at the website and you know, kind of digging around is a really great way to find that information and those critical points of contact. Yeah, I encourage anybody, you know, who's interested to look, and then feel free to reach out, you know, with specific questions relating to those program areas. Well, if anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, might peace out and let you all move on to the next stage in your program.
Thank you very much, Ben. We appreciate your coming and spending some time and sharing your knowledge with us.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say this has been really instructive for me, understanding sort of, you know, what some of the areas of interest out there in the community are, and how I can, you know, be prepared to address those going forward, and you know, maybe pull in some of my teammates. Again, I don't want to volunteer anybody. I'll get in trouble for that. Thank you so much. You'll have a great evening, and thank you for the work that you do in our community.
Absolutely.
Whose cat is that?
That'd be mine. Just wanted to say hi. Take care.
All right. Good night, Ben. Okay, so next on our agenda is a report out from the folks who took the Belonging webinar through the city. So I think that was Gary, Tim, and George.
Ta-da! I can start. Apparently it was a relatively new training for the people of the city. It started with the people of the employees of the city, and then they've gone through a lot of them. And so the meeting that we were on was some city people and some of the board members, and I guess Board Plus members throughout Eugene. And they assumed that we were all sort of beginners in the understanding of diversity and equity and inclusion. And George and I were talking about today, but I had my first sort of belongings session in 1983 with Coca-Cola, some guys from Coca-Cola. 3 Black businessmen came up from Atlanta and locked a large group of white guys into a room for 3 days and just told us what it was. And it was really a eye opener for me, but it's still needed clearly, because the staff people it was an eye opener, I think, for everybody. I'm just going to kind of skim through the highlights here. It was interesting to me that they did focus on a lot of the local issues and the local history. So if you weren't really a native Oregonian who's about 70 years old or older, you might not have known this stuff. And I noticed that of the 30-something people and the 40-something people, they didn't know a lot of the racist history that has occurred in Oregon. The goal of this concept of belongings is that the city deeply wants to, you know, develop a place where everybody, whatever their disadvantage is or their underservedness is or issue is, the race, the religion, the handicapped, anything, gay, lesbian, transgender, you know, they just want to make it. So you come to Eugene, they feel that Eugene's a leading city in the country as far as this stuff goes, but just a long ways to go. There's still a lot of issues. So that's kind of what the belonging was all about. And they had a lot of nice graphics. They had one that takes inclusion and equity and diversity, and where those all intersect that helps make people feel like they're belonging. the some of in the education world, there's a lot of talk about equity and equality, and they talk a fair amount about that, because I think a lot of us were brought up when we wanted things to be fair and we wanted things to be equal. And I know in the education world, they didn't use this one, but an image they use is 3 people standing against a fence trying to look into like a Major League Baseball game or something. And it's a solid fence. And they have 3 wooden blocks for them to stand on. One's a little kid, well, he can't see because he's way too short. And then the dad, he can see over the fence, see the game, and the mom's kind of right there at eye level and can't see very well. And so the whole issue there is, they use a little different graphic here, but is that you're treating people equally, but you're not getting equitable results. So what the next image you typically see in that presentation is 3 different size boxes, which allows everybody to see over the fence. And like I said, they use a different graphic, which I think was equally as effective. Talked about—
They used the bikes, right?
Pardon?
Didn't they have bikes? Yeah.
Yeah, they had 4 bikes, and they had somebody who was handicapped, and then sort of the mom, dad, child thing, and they gave them all the same size bikes. Well, the handicapped person couldn't use the bike, and the dad was scrunched over, and the mom was in the perfect position, and the little kid was, it was way too small for him, and then they gave them all the right size bikes, and the handicapped person a 3-wheeled bike. So that was the equity issue. Then they went through the cultural issues that were predominantly 96%, 94% white community, that white people don't tend to, we try to ignore, or we have these inherent biases that we don't think about. So they went through the California Indians sort of getting wiped out by malaria and resettled, and the fact that they were resettled, the French fur traders coming down and marrying the Indians and creating their own sort of mix of people. The African Americans, of course. I happen to have one of the people from the Reynolds family, the 2 kind of famous families in Eugene are the Mims and the Reynolds. There's the Mims house downtown, and there's the Reynolds. There's a Reynolds Park over by Churchill High School, and those 2 families lived over in the Alton Baker area before blacks could move into the city proper. So they talked about that, a lot of the changes in the laws that have gotten better. They talked about the KKK. Didn't talk about the Asians in Oregon specifically too much, or Eugene, nor the Hispanics, but they did. I had forgotten about this, but they talked about a national Operation Wetback. Forgot to write down what year, but where 1 million undocumented Mexicans were sent away for deportation back to Mexico. And my brother is a very flamboyant gay guy who if you meet him, you'd love him. But it was like when I went to college between 68 and 72, and that's when the gay liberation activity was going on. And they brought up the fact that the first attempts in the state legislature were in 1973 to get some gay rights legislation passed. Then I think we might have heard the Lon Mabon era, if you lived through that. He sponsored anti-gay legislature, he tried to get through the state legislature, and then tried to get some initiatives passed on that. And it took till 1993 to get legislation passed in Oregon. So, all that and those different groups, it's just, hopefully if you listen to that, because this was 3 hours, and the city staff people have to go through 10 hours, this for 10 hours, but you're starting to try to look at life through their eyes. And it's easy for white people, and it helped me to understand, to reinforce more what white privilege is all about, that phrase. And it's trying to look at these issues. And you know, my brother went through being gay. It was just, it was a tough life for a long time. Then we switched to something called circles of identity. And you may have heard it in a different phrase, social location. That's you or them, what race, what language, your religion, belief system, your physical abilities, your age, your sexual orientation, your sex and social class. So we did a little drill where we identified ourselves and then you tried to think about other people and how you would interact with them. And again, we could only touch on these things briefly, and the whole thing was 10 hours for city people and 3 hours for us. And so, you know, what they're trying to do with us as leaders is to just get us to think more and more and more about that stuff. Because I have, ever since I was, in college, it was a very turbulent time with the Gay Liberation Front and the Black Power and the feminism going on. And so it's been with me all the time, but to go back and have all that, put in front of you one more time, it doesn't hurt. It really helps, I think. George and Tim?
You pretty much covered it. It was very thorough and long, a lot of information. Some of it, as a wide, remember they had that chart with I don't know if it was circles or check boxes about me. Basically it was me. I checked every box as a white privileged racist, apparently. So that made me pretty uncomfortable. and I think that was a good thing.
Yeah, and then there was the existing covenants. I didn't really get that, Gary, if you've got a little more information about that, how they were identifying language within deeds around town. And I didn't really understand how that works and, what kind of policing they were intending on, what avenues they were intending on going down. It sounded pretty interesting though.
Yeah, well, in your purchase contract in your house, it wouldn't be out in this area, but mostly say Lawrence Street going east up to the university, those old homes have in their restrictions that you can't sell to a Black person. And then Julie Fahey, I believe it was, got that sort of outlawed at the state level, but it's still in contract. So there are people around Eugene who are trying, or in your title or whatever. And so there are people around Eugene who are trying to get rid of that. And one of the neighborhood associations that was in on that and probably has a pretty high percentage of houses that still have that language, they're going to go after it and see if they can somehow get a city grant or something to pay for the legal fees to get all that changed. So it's just, yeah, it's a good memory there, George. I forgot about that.
Well, it was so odd. And I thought, how could they actually police it? It seemed like quite a monstrous task. So it was curious if any of our team had any experience with that and how they addressed it. And also, I'm wondering how Peter has 2 profiles.
2 computers? I had to go for that.
Okay, I guess.
Any questions on the belonging training? Oh, Patrick, yes.
It sounds like there was a lot of good information and whatnot. As you had mentioned, Oregon has a history, and if you haven't been here for a long time, you don't know some of that history. It's good information to have, but was this just another check the box that we provided it and we said we did this and we're trying and we're going to move on? Because things have a way of coming into flavor and then falling out of flavor for whatever reason. Not to snow this over, but was it just a check the box exercise?
I don't think so, and here's why. It may be more for that might be part of it for the neighborhood associations. You know, we did this for our leadership out there with the hope that we do something. But there was a specific question asked, and I don't know if I was just not listening at the time of the question, but the answer was from a city employee. Says, when we look for people to fill our committees, first of all, we look at the committee makeup itself to see the underrepresented groups that might be missing. And then also they're searching for people who, you know, are into this belonging, you know, type thinking, the diversity and equity issues. And so from what they can control from assigning their own internal committees and probably bringing people into committees that also include non-government citizens, yeah, you definitely, as a city employee, you better, you know, continue to study in this area.
I agree with that. And you know, it may have been a mandate, an outreach mandate that they had to do this, but they put a huge amount of effort into the program. And I think as much as they can get it out there, Gary's right. Those potential committee people who are citizens will come in with a great foundation if they don't have one already.
And I was much more critical. I found it very top heavy. I didn't understand why there was only basically a race issue involved. I thought, you know, hey, you're not talking about seniors. You're not talking about underprivileged, you know, the poor people. You're not talking about so many parts of our population that are not served by this dialogue. But that was my take on it. And also that's why, you know, I tried to connect with Kate. She didn't have resonance with it on a concept having to do with, are we losing our ability to keep people within their comfort zone during dialogue? And are we losing our character as a community organization by having one-sided figures?
Interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that it was heavily around race, I think, with the only exception being the handicapped, and that wasn't mentioned much. And I was a little surprised that the unhoused wasn't in there in a pretty big way, because you know, what's going on right now is not good. It's not good. It breaks my heart. We're having a lot of issues at Aubrey Park, and you know, you kind of go, you know, do we try to get those people out of there because now it's not being used anymore, or you know, and these people, do they really need to be there? And unfortunately, they moved on to down by U-Haul. But you know, George has had some experience over at the church as far as the garden, and you know, we as a community need to deal with it. And it wasn't talked about, I don't think, at all in this presentation, which surprised me.
Well, that's a fair criticism from both you guys, and I agree with that. And I don't know, maybe that wasn't the goal, to be all encompassing like that, but as long as involved as it was, it probably should have tried to cover as many bases as possible rather than just race.
And also there was the, you know, 65% of the time was spent on white guilt, you know, and that's a huge deal, of course, especially here in Eugene. But I mean, let's get real. Nobody wants to be preached to.
But what did you, to that point, George, I think that was an interesting point. Tim, you mentioned that, hey, you checked every box because that kind of made you feel bad. Was that kind of the point? Not directly a point to say, hey, you got to feel bad, but if you're taking away from this conversation and putting a guilt, does that dilute some of that conversation going forward?
Absolutely. I think it does. And I just saw an agenda that did not fit what the average Joe on my neighborhood thinks.
Yeah, one of the images they put up, graphics they put up was concentric circles, and the inner one was your comfort zone. The next one was uneasy zone, and one was uncomfortable zone. So they said right up front, one of the things we're going to try to do today is get you into the uneasy zone. We don't want you to push you into the uncomfortable zone. We want you into the uneasy zone. And as an educator, former educator, I as a businessman, when I did the business things, I understood why they were making us uneasy. As an educator, and the best way to educate people, I don't know that I agree with that. I haven't thought enough about it to really put that to bed, but people aren't always open when they're pushed a little too far. I suspect, given the demographics of the city and people that were on there, they were fine with being uneasy. And I've been through so many of these that I was fine with being uneasy, and I was uneasy.
And I think that's true. I think that was their goal. Not just to keep you in a, slightly uncomfortable. It really seemed like they wanted to push the envelope, and for them, that's, and them being the city worker population, employee population. I think that's probably appropriate. It might be appropriate in a way to dialogue, but they lumped us into that. Anyway, we're gone way too long on this, and I just wanted to point out how well Gary did for encapsulating everything. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Yeah, great job, Gary.
Was there any specific information or tools that you think you could bring back that would help us reach out better to our community members?
Yeah, as soon as we get the finalized copy of the workbook, or whatever that manual was that they have, then we'll post it. And it's fairly big, I think.
But one of the things I was hoping to get out of the meeting was, and I was fully anticipating what we did go through, but was how to attract minorities to our meeting, and other people, conservatives, to our meetings. I mean, how do we do that? And Rennie started to get to it, but it was, I can't remember when we started, but it was 2 hours and 55 minutes into it, and it was a 3-hour meeting. So she just boom, 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 said some stuff. And when I was at North Eugene, a wonderful lady named Ann Christensen, she's Black, she lives about 3 blocks from me, but I talked to her about how to get Black participation, and she leads the Black Student Union over there, and I said, could you think we could get 1 or 2 of the students to come and maybe rotate through? And she looked at me, and she's a tough cookie, and she said, put yourself in a 17-year-old Black kid's shoes and walk into a meeting with 25 white people. Mostly old white guys, and she just cracked me up. But you got to think about that. And she said, "You've got to come to us." And Rennie I've had a one-on-one with Rennie about this before. She said the same thing. You've got to go to Asian festivals and smaller meetings, meet the people and NAACP, and we have to go to them and reach out. We've got to go to our neighbors and reach out. And it's tough.
Well, we've got a great resource at Huerto de la Familia. Is just unbelievable characters, unbelievable families from all over, and just a great base in which to dip into. So maybe Peter could help us figure out a way to dialogue with that group.
Good idea. Okay, well, just as an aside, thanks, Mary. As an aside, there's more belonging trainings available coming in the new year. So if you wanted to take this webinar, you could contact Rini at Neighborhood Services, or you could send me an email and I'd get you the information. Yes, Mary.
I have a question. You guys who went, would you recommend it?
I would recommend the majority of it. You could maybe bail out at the 2-hour mark, but there's they have an 8-question 1 page, 8 question in their handouts. In fact, you can look at it in the handouts, read the handout that they sent out. And that's very interesting. And then they have history behind all those, the answers to those questions. And again, if you're someone who's not a native Oregonian, you're probably not familiar with that at all. And I like to do this stuff, so I enjoyed it. So
short answer is it's worth it.
Okay. George?
I don't think you want to hear my answer.
No, I do. I wouldn't have asked. So you would not recommend it, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, if I wanted to, if you were really, I was mad at you and thought that you needed to get a browbeating and needed to have, punishment, then yeah, I'd definitely recommend it.
There are a lot of people who think I need all of those things. Okay.
Oh no, you're a great resource, Mary. Thank you for sharing.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next agenda item unless there's any other burning questions. Okay, so this would be a really good time to deal with the November minutes. I'll entertain a motion to adopt them as written or to amend. Anybody?
Don wrote me on amendment that there was a report on the bat phone that wasn't mentioned. The report simply said there wasn't any activity during the month, but that should have been in the minutes. So that addition would have to be made.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for minutes as written, including bat phone addition.
I so move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Patrick's a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, unanimity. Treasurer's report, Jerry.
Yeah, I like to do this once in a while because we don't do it very often. It needs to be in the minutes once in a while. And so I looked it up. We have a total in the account of $1,976.67, but $1,436.43 is in the garden account. So that means that our SACO account is $540.24.
Okay, great. And we'll move into updates and reports. And I would just mention a few things coming up. Next Tuesday, December 8th, is the third workshop for Santa Clara Community Park from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a Zoom workshop. And you can certainly
slow down. When was that?
Next Tuesday, 6 to 8 p.m. You can find the Zoom link on the Engage Eugene website. Then that meeting for the subdivision that's going to go in south of Peace Presbyterian, where their Zoom link didn't work and everybody who tried to connect experienced no success. We did send them back a preferred date for their next meeting, but we haven't heard back. And Tuesday the 15th is the CAC meeting for the neighborhood planning. So anybody who wants to be available for that and wants to listen in, it's from 6 to 8. And we're primarily going over land use action items, I think, as the CAC. And I would remind everybody to collate all your voluntary hours, because Jerry needs to report them in January to neighborhood services. And it would be great if everybody's voluntary hours were reflected in our report for making sure our neighborhood is considered an active neighborhood. And then one lingering bit of business that we do need to look at is looking for a volunteer to be the Citizen Advisory Committee alternate for the neighborhood plan. So if you would like to volunteer to be the CAC alternate, which means attending CAC meetings till we're done with our neighborhood planning process, we would love for somebody who wants to do that. You could just email me and I will collate anybody who volunteers. And I'll send a brief blurb to you, Gary. Maybe we could put it on the website also, and we'll give people 2 weeks or something to respond. And then we'll make a decision on a person after we spend 2 weeks waiting for people to respond. Does that work for people?
Yes.
Cool. I've got a question for Jerry.
Okay.
Did you see Louisa's email today regarding feedback for proposed actions on the neighborhood plan, for the community section of the neighborhood plan?
I saw the email. I just had a chance to scan it, so I really haven't read it.
Okay, so I looked at the document, the attached document, and I really don't see, is she asking us, you know, and I'm only bringing this up in this group because I wanted to know if there's any action required that you can think of that needs to be addressed at this meeting now.
I think what she's asking for, because every goalkeeper has been asked to create a list of priority actions. So within the entire list of actions in the neighborhood plan, some things are going to be considered higher tier in terms of more immediate implementation. And every goalkeeper is being asked to look at all the actions and create a prioritized list, hopefully with the help of their working group, which reflects the greater neighborhood population. And I believe that that's what Louisa is starting to do, is to gather people who have worked in that part of the neighborhood plan and work together to figure out the priorities in there. Does that sound like what she's asking you, George?
Absolutely. You know, what would we do without you, Kate? Thank you.
I can never tell if you're being facetious or not, but I'm going to just assume that that was a direct compliment and say, you're welcome, George.
Yeah, just because you're paranoid, Kate, doesn't mean that people aren't out to get you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jerry. I'll sleep real well tonight. And one other thing I wanted to bring up is that I got an email that there are Lane County small business grants that are available or coming available. They received, I think it's like $3.6 million. So if you, or if you're a small business that has fewer than 25 employees and you can document effects from COVID-19 that reduced your economic forecast, or it affected you economically, and you can demonstrate that with your last year's earnings and this year's earnings, there is some grant funding available. So you can look that up on the Lane County Small Business Grant page if that's something that you're interested in pursuing. Just bringing it up, and if you know other people in the neighborhood who have small businesses that would want that, that's a place to look.
That makes me think about the comment that George made about Huerta. I wonder if they know about that. I mean, and it seems like it would be good for us to think hard about who, I mean, I don't have I actually am a small business. It's just me, but I haven't been harmed by COVID, and I'm not going to go for that money. But I think that's, you know, it would be important to think about folks who have less access to information, especially folks who speak Spanish or just aren't as plugged into the cyber network of information. That would be a service we could provide. If we have those connections, this is a good place to use those connections and bring the awareness of that money to them.
Huh. So there's Huerta. Then when you say that, that makes me think of the little mercado that's down just south of Shooters and Don Juan's, in that little, you know, gathering together yoga, whatever, that place down there. There's a little business of non-native speakers right in there, El Rincon Mexicano, I think it's called.
It makes me think of food trucks. It makes me think of, you know, any number of small businesses that are around that wouldn't necessarily realize that this resource is here.
So how do you propose we let people know?
Well, I mean, the first step is just, I mean, Huerta comes to mind because that came up, you know, a few minutes ago, and there are existing connections. I think it's a little weird to walk up to random people and say, hi, I'm a white person who wants to help you get money. You know, I mean, if you don't know them, it's a little hard. Although coming in with money is a better entree than asking for things. I don't know, but I don't have a great solution, except if you have, I think it's just good to think about your existing networks and connections that we have with people already that would allow us to.
Pat.
Well, yeah, I think Dawn's right on. I think it's hard to go in and do that. What I would do is phrase it a little bit differently and say, we want to make sure that all businesses in Santa Clara know about this opportunity, as opposed to targeting somebody in particular.
Yeah.
I'm going to look. I think I got a message. I know I got a message that I think the county sent something, and I think there might be a link to some things, but I think I would start with how you frame it and just say, you know, we want all Santa Clara businesses, and you're certainly one of them. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just hard to figure out how to get it out there because our mailing list isn't that big. And it generally doesn't include businesses so much as private individuals.
Yep.
But we
Fair
could
enough.
certainly put it on our website and do our best to try to get the information out. What I understood about reading it was once the date for applications comes and goes, then it's a lottery process for who gets the grant. So, you know, it's not everybody or first come, first serve. It's how to, you know, some sort of randomly generated way of making it happen.
Was there a contact list of businesses for the neighborhood plan?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Kate, do you have the link to those emergency grants? If not, I can email that to you.
I don't know. I could look it up. It was just from an email I got from Lane County that, and I noticed it and I put it in my notes here to make sure that
there's a link I have. I'll just forward this to you, and that way you're checked off. But
that'd be great, Pat. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, so let's see. Next update or report is the bat phone. Dawn.
My big update is there were no calls on the bat phone this month. I think it will be worth, I think we should consider next year in January, or, you know, maybe when we get past the board elections, we should consider next year whether it's worth continuing to have it. There's been very, very little use of it. I know we had great intentions when we started it. I certainly don't mind having it. And there's been folks have stepped up to help fund it. So, you know, it's certainly not been a burden at all, but going forward at some point, if it just continues to be crickets. Well, I do get regular calls from people offering me better coverage on my car. Yeah. And lots of special offers. I do get that. But other than that, you know.
This is an urgent call from the warranty department.
Yeah, see, like that. It's a good thing I get those. But other than that, maybe we could look at next year if it's worth keeping it.
It was worth a try. Going into this whole thing, we didn't know what we were getting into.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a good intention. If it worked, it would have worked. You know, if it didn't, fine. Yeah.
That's right. I agree with that.
Okay. Outreach to Peace Presbyterian. Also you, Dawn.
Oh, just we talked last month that Kate and I were have offered to do some door knocking in the neighborhood around the proposed new microsite, housing microsite, and I think that's the right word we use for it. And so far, it's still a little stalled. Just today, Dan sent me a phone number to that guy at Peace Presbyterian. We had reached out to Peace Presbyterian to ask them their input before we go knocking on doors around there. We wanted the church itself to tell us, are there neighbors to avoid, neighbors to make a point of seeing? Have they done any outreach? Just sort of get the lay of the land before we start to do that. And Kate had a great suggestion. She asked Dan for literature, and I think he's going to create some sort of flyer that we can take.
Gary Haliski.
Harvey Clark? Yes, we are go for Saturday. Just found out yesterday afternoon from the city. They were waiting for the state to make their decision after the 2-week stoppage. And our one change is we have to bring our own tools. So I can't go down and pick up a bunch of tools and bring them to the site. So bring gloves, bring whatever you want to do, BlackBerry or Ivy. I'd really like to work on a lot of Ivy this time, probably have 3 or 4 BlackBerry people, but Karen's going to be there. Her garden's really looking good. There's stuff popping up already in it. I can't believe it. It's a little early for the wildflower celebration. We got to wait till we get our vaccines. So that's it, 9 to 12. There's a sign in that I'll run off of my phone. I just need your name and number of hours you work, and that's it. You're good to go.
Don, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought Gary had his hand up with a question. So I just wanted to check back and see if you're done or if there's something more.
I think that's all.
Okay. I'd like to ask a question. Kate, has the city been told that outreach to the neighbors is taking place by way of SACO?
This hasn't involved the city other than, so the way we know about the microsite is Dan Bryant phoned me and said, hi, we're gonna site a microsite behind Peace Presbyterian. What do you think we should do in terms of outreach? And that's how this started. And so I asked him more about it. So what is a microsite? Who takes care of them? And I'm still unraveling really how this is all working, because it's the city and the county together. And I don't know that the response I've had from questioning other people, questioning John Belcher, and it's still in its formative stages, and nobody's at least at our end is clear who's deciding what, how, when, and under what conditions. And so I think basically the city and the county are scrambling to try to house or shelter, I should say, as many people as they can this winter, given Egan's dramatic drop in ability to serve the unhoused community and the dramatic rise in the number of unhoused members in our community. And one of the models they're using are these microsites, which is up to, according to the city's website, up to 6 Conestogas or tents sited together and overseen by a group. So in the past, it's always been community supported shelters, Nightingale or St. Vincent de Paul, that have been running the rest stops and the shelter stops. And now they're broadening that out, and there are other nonprofits that are going to go ahead and oversee some of these microsites. And one of the new organizations to be able to do that is Square One Villages, which is Dan Bryant's organization. Yeah, so there have been already 2 Conestogas behind Peace Presbyterian, and if they make it a microsite, they'll have more residents there. And then the county has also bought, I think it's something like 200 of these, they're called pallet tents, which are really like these prefabbed plastic 64 square foot buildings that you can put up in a bunch of them in a day. They're just a little box, and it's, it's not wood, it's rot resistant, mildew resistant, bed bug, whatever. And it's a proper shelter, like a little mini dollhousey, small building with a hard building with a roof, and has a bed and a sink and all that kind of. So all these microsites will have trash pickup, hand washing, sanitation, and will be overseen by an organization that's making sure that the agreements for being there, that people will be screened. There will be, according to the city's website, there will be 0 tolerance for, screaming and undesirable behavior, alcohol, and drug use on site. But people will be allowed to cook and meet their basic needs right there at their microsite. So how they're working together, how they're choosing sites, how it's being implemented, who's taking responsibility for it, I don't really know all that, but I think that thinking strategically in terms of the long-term plan for the tiny house village in front of Peace Presbyterian, it would be really great if this microsite project is really successful. And for it to be successful, I think there has to be really good interface between the neighboring residents and the residents of the microsite. And so our discussion with Dan Bryant was around, okay, well, you know, there have been these 2 Conestogas there for over a year now. I wonder how that's going. Has Peace Presbyterian gotten any feedback? Who, you know, like who's gotten feedback? And if we're going to have a microsite there, which is, you know, it's not a ton of people, but it's significantly more than 2 Conestogas, then maybe we need to go out and knock on the doors of the neighbors right there, the ones that are most directly affected, and just check in and say, hey, you know, this is going to happen. How's your experience been thus far? Are you comfortable with the behaviors you've been neighbor to? Would you like some information on who to contact in case something is not working for you? You know, like not interjecting us as an overseeing, but really kind of making an introduction and making sure that they're feeling like the Square One Villages is responsive to situations that are there. Because I think a lot of people, their biggest concern is that something's going to go wrong and no one's going to know who to call or who to talk to. And if there's
and for them seeing these buildings already occurring, they are, I believe, already at that point and coming to me at least and saying what's going on down there. And I'm saying, well, they're in touch with our president, but not in touch with us. We're not getting any information as far as I know. And therefore, we're still being held accountable. So my question to you stands, does the city believe or the county believe that this group has dealt with that level, that mandate of notifying the public by way of the community organization? And if so, then we need more information right away.
No, there's not any, George, there's not, the city, there's neither the city nor the county have believed that SACO has a role. It's just SACO stepping up and offering to be helpful. That's a voluntary thing from us to just see as an opportunity to help people not feel blindsided. We are in a good position. We're in a good position to offer that hand and offer that information, and be a friendly face and a conduit and get a conversation going. But neither the city nor the county sees us as having some sort of formal role. This is entirely voluntary.
Yeah, you know, you're getting more out of me tonight than you probably want. But a couple of things that I would suggest, and I just finished 6 years on the county's poverty and homelessness board. I think one is that Dan's group is a good group of folks. I mean, in terms of being able to monitor these housing developments or microsites. And I would, if whatever it's worth for me, I would be, if that was next to my house or down the street from me and knowing Dan was involved in it, I'd feel pretty good about it. I know that in those sites that I've toured and been through, is that a lot depends on how that community is governed. And oftentimes they govern themselves. And that's very empowering for the folks that live there. And it also, believe it or not, I think creates some eventually some security for the people that live around there. So I would ask about how that governing is going to happen on a day-to-day basis, and if this is, you know, and what the rules are going to be and that sort of thing. Another person to connect with is Sarai Johnson. And Sarai was hired by the county and the city, for lack of better terms, to be the homelessness czar. and she's the focal point for a lot of this work. But she can be very helpful with some information. Are they saying this is going to be a permanent site, or is this a temporary thing, or just for the winter?
It's a temporary thing for the winter. We had already been in conversation with Dan, Pat, about there is a long-term permanent, actually a double village being planned for this site for a couple of years from now.
Yeah.
So that will be a permanent one that has the kind of self-governed, or two self-governed villages, right? Tiny villages. Sure. There are planned for a couple years out. and that will follow that kind of model that you've seen, and it has been successful. And I agree with you on, you know, I think they have a good thing going at Square One. This is much more temporary and much smaller, and it's happening fast. And so we really just want to get out, get some conversations happening. So again, just avoiding that sense of people feeling blindsided.
Well, if I can be of any assistance, I just simply with my phone number, please call me, and I'm glad to weigh in with what I know or don't know.
Thanks, Pat.
You bet.
Let's try to get Kate as informed as, you know, let's get our leadership informed as to what the status is today and what it's going to be 2 weeks from now. I mean, when they saw the big uproar and then they went silent, and then the next thing is deployment, no, not going to work. You're going to have a horrible situation. You know, in that we haven't heard anything from them for months now.
Except since then, there are two huts there that nobody has raised any concerns about, to my knowledge.
Understood. Yeah. No, I'm talking about the building of the multiple huts in the front.
Oh, yeah.
That whole thing just became moot point. It's just silence. For us, we didn't get any information.
Yeah.
I didn't get anything.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the church has only just finished annexing that, and that's the only land use action this month is they have applied for a partition. So the church is doing their part extra slowly, and Square One Villages is only just going to start fundraising to be able to do that. So it's going to be at least a year of fundraising before there's any kind of further planning and development for the site. So it's
okay. So I heard the winter. Is that the winter of 2021?
We're talking about a micro site, which is just 5 huts or tents that are going to be behind the church, totally separate from the tiny home village out front, which is a permanent thing.
Right.
The first I've heard that.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh.
Of the tiny home village, that's the first.
Well, don't you read your email, George?
Of going behind the church.
It was at the last. We talked about it at the last meeting, but where else would it have been?
I didn't hear him going behind the church. See, and that was the part that our neighbors raised holy hell about was, you know, in the front, right on River Road, you know, et cetera. So I didn't get that. Okay, so I'm sorry I missed that.
No, that's okay. I'll try to be clearer. Okay.
And those 2 Quonset, I've seen only one of the Quonset huts. Is there 2 adjacent? I just drove in the driveway next to the church and then backed out, and I saw one there. But is there another one on the other directly south of the church, the building itself?
I can't tell you. I haven't been there in ages. But I know originally there were 2 there, and 2 at Messiah Lutheran, and 1 car camper in the Baptist church across the street. And, you know. And
by the way, it looked very good. I mean, it was well kept. There was a gentleman in the front that was doing some work, you know, just doing his daily activities. And it looked very good, very well kept up.
Excellent. Okay. So anyway, just keeping everybody up to speed with the microsite project and what all. So I would assume sometime between now and next month's meeting that Dawn and I are going to go out and do some door knocking and just checking in with people. So just FYI.
Passing out flyers.
Uh-huh. And next update is Santa Clara Community Garden. Peter Thurston, are you there?
It looks like he bailed both accounts. But I'll tell you that he's been really
I have something that I want to add to
on the task, and he deployed 1 new plot yesterday, and I met with that person today, and we got cardboard down and compost on top with coffee grounds for solarizing his plot, and a new resident to Santa Clara living over by the new park from San Diego. He and his wife are new purchasers of property over there. So we welcomed him today. And the other thing about the garden is that Craig is taking a little sabbatical at this point, but he's done such a killer job with composting, and he trains anybody that wants to come over and help out. And we've been doing a huge composting effort over there.
Tim, you had something to say?
Yeah, not specifically about the garden, although I was over there the other day and walking around, and it looked fine. I don't know what the status of our worm project is, but if anybody wants to do a sampling in their plot of worm populations, I can give them a protocol for that, so they can contact me. I did want to add to something Gary said about the park, is I've been over there a few times, and the last time I was there walking around Lorna's Loop, somebody had put 3 little plastic tubs full of cat food out. And I picked them up and tossed them in the garbage can. That's really not allowed. Shouldn't be allowed. Anyway, talk about encouraging a rat problem.
I was gonna say, here little rat, here little, I don't know why we have a rat problem.
Anyway, yeah, if you see any more of that stuff, let's nip it in the bud.
my rat problem's been solved because they disappeared when my great horned owls came back.
Brilliant. Okay. So like I mentioned about land use, the only new land use action is the partition for the Peace Presbyterian site. So that was that. And one other thing we needed to discuss was creating some sort of idea about recorded Zoom meetings, because they take up a lot of space and we can't keep them on our Zoom cloud because that's sponsored by the city and it takes up too much space. And so Tim and Gary Holiski, maybe you could give us an idea of what possible moving forward strategies are.
What do you want to do?
Well, I mean, we never promised anybody that we were going to save them for perpetuity. And so we were recording them because our numbers have been so low at meetings. We wanted people to be able to access the information if they wanted it. And it seems to me that some of our meetings where we've had a special presentation, like when Dan Bryant came to talk about the tiny home village, or maybe Ben's presentation tonight might be interesting for people if they wanted to look up something on the website, then it might be worth keeping a few of those kind of things around for a little while. But our average get through the business meeting might not be so interesting for people. I don't know. So I'm putting it out to everybody. What do we want to do? Because if we do want to save them, we'll have to figure out a way to pay to save them. And for Tim and Gary, this is where it all gets fuzzy for me, because it's not.
Yeah, I would like to suggest that we simply go through and find the ones that we think have presentations on them that cannot be replicated by simply reading the minutes. Otherwise, the minutes, I think that Gary's still posting the minutes, and people can figure out what's going on in the meetings from the minutes.
I agree with that.
Do we have to keep those Zoom meetings, or just for our own convenience, besides what Jerry's pointed out with
yeah, you know, I don't think there's anything compelling us to do it, but since we have those recordings, you know, it seems to make sense to at least have the discussion. I'm not generally in favor of, you know, keeping them all forever, but we could probably post them every month and then just replace the next month's recording each time, and then just I don't know, delete them, or I have them on my server now, so I'll keep them for a while. But go ahead.
We could rent a storage unit at the U-Haul and put thumb drives and fill it up with thumb drives of our recordings.
Yeah.
Come on.
Or maybe devote a room in the new schoolhouse to file cabinets full of recordings of our old meetings.
There you go.
What kind of viewing have you seen, Jerry? What have people even requested it, or how much viewing after the fact have you seen?
I don't know for a fact because I don't keep those, and I'm not really sure we have a way of knowing when they're actually viewed.
Every person that's called the bat phone asks to see the recording of the meeting.
I have had 2 different people ask about the Peace Presbyterian Tiny Village thing, and I just expressed to them to go find it on the website and watch the presentation, which it's much better to get it from the horse's mouth than to get it from a second or third iteration. So things like that I think might be helpful, but I agree with the idea that maybe we just keep this meeting until we get through with January meeting, then we keep the January meeting till we get done with the February meeting, kind of a thing, except for with the rare exception for a good presentation.
Yeah, I think we can cut out just the presentation part of it. That Presbyterian Church one was an outstanding presentation. Was presented well, and it was full of accurate information, which I think would relieve a lot of people of anxiety of it going in there if they heard that. And as far as storage and whatnot goes, just clip that portion out of it. I think, yeah, keep the stuff up for a month, and if we have something that we really think's hot, just cut that out, save it, and maybe Tim and I can figure out how to put it in a category that you could find it in without having minutes.
And to support that, Gary, it sounded like Louis was saying YouTube would do that perfectly for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get like a QuickTime file out of Zoom from the recording, and then you could just cut that. And I don't think we keep this part of the meeting in perpetuity anywhere, but I think that if we put like the microsite presentation or whatever, potentially with the right keywords and stuff, that could get people interested in that kind of stuff in our neighborhood, get people to our meetings, possibly. So
is somebody volunteering to manage a Santa Clara YouTube channel?
I mean, if it's one video a month, it seems doable.
Oh, it could grow.
Yes, it could.
Yeah, I have a notebook of minutes. I can prove to you how it grows.
But it only grows one a month.
Right.
So, no, but I have videos of taking down the Douglas firs, of running our sawmill.
Oh yeah,
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, nobody wants to go see that. I mean, except for you, Tim. I mean, that's lovely. And
but you know how if you go to a website and you're looking up information, and then on the page there's this little box with a video that you can click on, and it'll just play a 30-second or a 1 minute or whatever it is long video related to the information you're looking at. Can we do something like that? Like if somebody clicks on our website and goes to housing options or homeless issues, and then there's this little video, that.
Yes. Well, having not been involved with the Santa Clara website at all, I know that is a feature of WordPress.
Yeah, sure. We can do that. That's fine. Somebody has to design the layout and the presentation, how they want it to look. We can do that.
I'm just asking a question. I'm not trying to make work for anybody. I'm just wondering, like, if these little videos live with the information on our website, and you can click on it, is that going to help people? And would that then be a place to put, a brief thing about
it? Doesn't live on the website. It lives on YouTube, and YouTube streams it through the website.
Thank you for helping.
Right. So it would be on YouTube, and if you clicked on one of the videos on YouTube, you would likely see others at the end of it as related content, and we could embed the YouTube video into our website and have a tag or something that says video, And then there's a WordPress. I don't know anything about how our WordPress is built, but there's a plugin you can get to show related content at the end of the post. I'm not volunteering to be a webmaster, but I would be willing to slice but not significantly edit a video or two a month.
Okay, Louis, you do that, and I will.
That's great, Louis. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis.
I'm not going to give like industrial light and magic type effects. It's just going to be slicing a QuickTime file and uploading it to YouTube.
Thank you.
Cassette tapes with Scotch tape. That's my technology.
Hey, Don, I still have the videos of the candidate forum that we had at the church.
Oh God, really?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
And
it's just for when you run again.
And Kate, can you find the or work with Jerry to determine what needs to go to Louis to put up?
How many videos would currently exist that
how many are
go up in a batch?
Well, we've only been Zooming for about 8 months. Is that right?
Hang on, I'll see if I can tell you that, Lou.
When I think back over the Zoom meetings, the ones that come to mind for me that stand out are Dan Bryant's and Danuta Pfeiffer.
Oh yeah. I think I might have blown it on hers though.
We'd probably need to get permission from the presenter to post their likeness.
Ah, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that.
Probably. Well, when you're
on Zoom, you pretty much give it all away.
That's a good point.
If they know they're being recorded, I think the point of a recording is that it's available as a recording. So I don't think we have to do an extra step for that.
Okay.
But then there's another one nagging at me. We saw another really good one in the last few, maybe something from the city. I guess I just don't think it's when I look back over the 8 months, there wouldn't be one per month because not every month has had something significant that's worth, posting, I think.
I have 11 recorded meetings right now.
Okay.
But
maybe 3 or 4 of them have this kind of value, I think.
Yeah. And so yeah, somebody has to review those and see what content needs to be.
Well, if you just need somebody to look at the meetings and say, there's a piece in here and send it to Louis, and Louis can do the cutting and what all, I can do that part because I think a lot of those meetings are Board Plus meetings looking at action items, and definitely we don't need to save those things. Good Lord. But
just look at your minutes and you should be able to just zoom in on each one.
Yep.
As Jerry said, we get good material there.
On the minutes webpage, there's 3 columns, and the right-hand column is the main topics of each meeting for the last 3 years. I don't know. And so that would be a fast way to see if there is a key item we want to clip.
Can I ask Gary and Tim or whomever, is there a Gmail account for Sacco?
There is. We've kind of moved away from that, but I'm assuming it would have a YouTube account associated with it.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily want to use my personal Gmail account. So if Sacco has one, we don't need to use it for email or anything, but it comes with all the Google tools, which YouTube is one of the Google tools at this point.
Right, and Gary, you have control of that. I have control of the domains emails, but we need specifically the Google account info. So you guys can get together and talk about that.
So I would
send me the info too if you need to.
I would ask for probably the login info for the Gmail, and then start with maybe 3 videos and go from there. So somebody tell me which 3 to do up first.
Yeah, I will send them to you. They're MP4s is what they are.
Okay.
So that's a QuickTime file. So.
And Kate, was there anything else? I want to jump out of this subject just for a second and ask, is there anything else that we needed to discuss with Pat regarding the LTD presence on River Road, or any of the traffic light issues or anything? Did anybody have anything that they wanted to say?
Pat, you had your hand up?
Oh, I can just, that's a good question. Let me just give you a little bit of an update. One, where most of the work around the traffic signals, Randy tells me has been completed. There's still some work to do, but she told me they're not anticipating at this point any significant disruption to River Road traffic, particularly at peak hours. So I guess we're not anticipating any issues there, but there may be a 5-minute or few minutes slowdown at some point here in the next week. So that work should be done. But I'm looking at my notes from Randy. That should be done by the end of next week. Work on the actual site itself is going smoothly. They've poured about 1,000 feet of cement for the bus drive around or loop, and the driver relief building is almost completed. In terms of next steps with the remainder of the Santa Clara school property, that item has not been placed on the board agenda yet. I mean, it's not going to be on it this month. I'm guessing it won't be on next month. I could be wrong, but as soon as I know something, I will email Kate and Jerry, and they can disseminate that date among the folks here and others. Again, that'll just be a discussion and a decision to make the property surplus as opposed to what's going to happen with it, and that will happen next. And as that process becomes clearer to me, I will let you guys know what that's going to look like. I'm trying to think what else. That's kind of what I know right now. I do encourage you, please, if you've got questions, to reach out to me. I'd rather get those questions answered ahead of time before we get into 4 weeks passed by. You know what I mean? And things just, it's like that garbage that guy was talking about. Over 2 weeks, nothing smells good. You know what I mean? So I'd rather just be able to get an answer to everybody. So that's.
Well, I wanted to chime in that I didn't notice any severe interruptions of traffic on that road at all. But we did want to ask you if Kevin's question from last month was resolved with regards to the bicycle lane on southbound.
Well, I don't know. I wish Kevin was here. I know I noticed because I rode my bike down there. I didn't doubt Kevin, but I had to go down to the store. So I rode down there, and when I went by those signs, they were moved farther closer to the curb. Now, I don't know if that's true. I'll look again tomorrow morning when I go down the road, but I know that Randy talked to the contractors and told them to make the bike lane available. So I don't know if Kevin experienced that or not. So
cool.
But I know the request was made, or the direction was given. Is probably a better way to put it.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, you bet.
And I think thanks for that. Just more diligence by the contractor at the end of the shift, leaving signs up that says road, lanes closed ahead and they're not, sidewalks closed and they're not. That's the kind of stuff that just only takes a little bit of time for them to clean up. And I think that diligence in this stage of the game would be very helpful for all. So
I will send Randy an email tonight and ask her to get on them about that, because that's irritating, particularly if particularly if you're going to get out of the bike lane and get on the sidewalk to avoid the bike lane. It's for a period of time it's hard. So
correct. Thank you.
You bet.
Here's a question for Sako in that direction. We started a little email conversation about next steps, and there was an idea floated about us setting up a Zoom call with the city and just starting a conversation about do we want to have a conversation with the city or a number of stakeholders about visioning that surplus site and what what kinds of things we want to be prepared for, what kinds of things we want to be promoting, encouraging, finding. We talked about that a little bit in the email as a group. What do folks think?
I always feel proactive is better than reactive in all possible scenarios. And I did bring it up today at our project management team meeting with Alyssa Hansen over at the city, because I think if we're asking the LTD board to consider something, we want in our mind, what we're asking is for them to partner with the city to do something specifically. The city needs to want to do that same thing right? So Alyssa and I had a conversation about that, and I'm going to follow up with a few more phone calls to the city to see where they're at and what their thinking is, because although planning is really on board and parks is really on board, neither of them have the budget to do the whole schlemiel, and so that's a different conversation with somebody else. So we just have to sort of, it's like the many-headed hydra and having to get to wherever the brain is on there and be able to work out if we're all going in the same direction, and then ask for that kind of cooperation and asking LTD to cooperate with that and see where that goes. Does that answer your question?
That's a great response, Kate. I think you've got it nailed. But how do we develop something in writing? What's the next step? What do you think needs to be done to show SACO's interests and directions that we were interested in?
To show who?
The city.
Well, I was going to start with a phone call and check out. I mean, they've heard from us a million times over the last number of years of neighborhood planning about how important it is to us. We've documented the amount of times we've lent our support to LTD for their needs and made it really clear that the expectation was that we would have reciprocal support when we needed it. And so now being able to try to get the city to step up and say that if everything in their planning future is all about transit-oriented design, and this, the people actually, I can speak for the planning department, seeing this as an incredible opportunity for them that probably won't come again in terms of large-ish greenfield opportunity on a major transit corridor to implement the kind of planning and design principles that they're looking to have as redevelopment options the city over the next 40 years, that letting this pass them by is not, unless there's just a snowball's chance in hell that they can't get it done, right? Unless there's no way for them to do it, this is an opportunity they shouldn't let go. And so it's all then becomes a question of how, because the budget forecast and the reserves and all that sort of thing is, not a plum picture at this point. So if they had to figure out a way to fund it by dipping into a lot of different pots, and if one of those pots was land banking, low-income housing land banking, then, is there a portion of the site that could be creatively used for affordable housing? And then being really clear that if the Parks knows they want to put a plaza there, but they don't want to put a plaza there unless the whole rest of that is designed specifically with creating success for the park. And so that requires a certain way of looking at the rest of the site and how it does. So it's becomes a chicken and egg and a ball of string, the whole thing. But I do think that if we get the right people focused on making that happen, it can happen. And it's just a matter of, we can figure out a plan at our end with the neighborhood and the city and planning and fundraising around that. And if we can present that to LTD in a way that LTD sees that it could really improve the success rate of the transit station as well, and that it would build a lot of community trust and goodwill and create the kind of partnership that builds successful neighborhoods instead of resentful neighborhoods, then we could get to a place where it's a win-win-win all the way around. And that's sort of.
Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, can I say that there's sort of three, with your conversation with the city, what I would do is keep three things in mind, because I think there's three things that the LTD people will look at that, and they may be, and not, they may be deal breakers, they may not be. So don't say Pat Walsh said these are deal breakers, but one is that they want to sell that entire piece of property. They don't want to sell half of it, and they don't want half of it as a park. So that's something to be aware of. Secondly, the concerns with the City of Eugene are twofold as a partner or as a next door neighbor. One is they don't take care of their parks and their properties very well because they don't have the budget to do it. It's not that they don't want to do it. It's just that they don't have the budget to do it. And there's nobody that wants to be next to that. And the second thing is that the security issue is critical. One, for the neighborhood, but two, that LTD can't be the default police force to come out and take care of whatever happens on that property, which does happen in other city LTD relationships. So I would say if you can address those three things, I think that you know, I think LTD is going to be good to work with anyway, but I think that would allay a lot of concerns.
Super good to know. That's helpful to know.
Yeah, so those are three things that I would. And like I said, I don't know if they're deal breakers. I don't know if they're deal makers, but I do know that those are three things that, you know, I haven't been involved in conversations with this for about a month, but I know before that, those were the three things we're really focused on. And
Pat, could you give us a ballpark of the cost of that chunk? What are they trying to sell it for?
You know, I don't know.
Was it 20 million or 2 million or what? You know,
it wasn't 20. No, it's not 20. I mean, it's lower. It's much lower. I think they bought the whole project there to buy the land and build the station is about $10 million. I mean, So I can't remember what it was paid for. I could look on the website, but it'll be, you know, a few $1,000,000, I'm sure.
Last month we were promised a market appraisal, weren't we?
Well, not by this month, you weren't. But
no, but I mean, somebody was gonna, yes.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Don. There'll be a market appraisal done, but you know the procedural steps have to happen first, which is the board has to agree and vote that the property's surplus, and then all that stuff will start. But yeah, that's it. You know, if it were me, I wouldn't. If it were just Pat doing stuff, it'd go a lot faster. But I don't get to do it that way. So. But yeah, no, you're right. It's there'll be an appraisal of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of parks, I've got a question for Kate. Did the city tell us that the maintenance on the dog park was going to be incumbent upon the community? Is that the case with all of their other dog parks in town?
Are you talking about the dog park down at Lone Oak?
No, the dog park that is proposed on our site. We have Gary can clarify what the volunteer requirement of removing the poop, taking it off site and putting it in our garbage can. And I'm asking the question: how do they do it at their other parks, dog parks?
I don't have a dog. I wouldn't know what they do, but I just know that at the community park at this point in time, when there isn't an actual dog park, they had somehow emailed Joel Robe and asked him, would he be willing to collect the waste from the receptacle for the dog waste and take it home and throw it away and have that be his responsibility. He said, no, thank you very much, and sent it to me. And I said, absolutely, I'm not a dog owner and I'm not. But perhaps if we put it on the website as something for all these people who clamor for dog parks everywhere all the time, let them take responsibility for it and let somebody else volunteer to do it, because it's not high on my list of things to accomplish in my lifetime.
We have posted it.
And they're calling the bat phone in Does by the dozens.
That's what I failed to do. I put the bat phone number in.
All right, because then they'd call.
I think
the reason I asked that specifically around Pat's summary of the LTD property was that if we were able to get the parks system involved in like evidently, you know, he mentioned the low budget, you know, so they don't have money to purchase the property itself. But did I hear correctly that they did not want to go in to a situation where a commercial builder would go in with the park system and develop that property as a team, or two groups working on that property? Did I understand that right, Pat? You're muted.
I know that there's concern, not concern, that's wrong, that's too strong a word, but there's been discussions about what would happen there. You know, I would say at this point, I know that ideally you know, a park is, you know, again, brings up the security issue and some of that they're concerned about. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't limit it to anything. I think I just come up with a good proposal based on sort of knowing the three hot buttons I kind of identified, and if those can be addressed, that'd be great, you know?
Okay.
I'd like to suggest we move on. We were at 9:15.
Excellent. Well, we don't have anything else on our agenda other than preparation for January meeting and other matters, whatever other matters are.
Well, I think we've covered all the other matters tonight, but the preparation for the preparation for the January meeting, we of course do have to have a board election. It's got to be a general meeting. We're going to have to strive for a general meeting quorum. And so we're going to have to probably do some brainstorming about what could get everybody interested in coming.
Okay, well, maybe we should all at least try to bring 2 other people, each of us, and then do a better job of putting it out to on our social media or whatever. And then maybe we could consider maybe January, we could do a slight retrospective or a thanks or you know, some sort of something that would encapsulate ongoing initiatives so that new people, if we try to get them to come to this, would have a sort of idea of what we're doing, and it would be less business and more fun.
Yeah. How about an update on the tiny homes building? Maybe if we advertise that, we could get some people interested.
An update on Dan Bryan's Square One Village project?
Yeah. To the public. I mean, let's let them know what's going on and see what kind of feedback we get.
Not a good idea.
I think we want to do a more measured rollout. You know,
right.
like when
we don't want negativity at the meeting.
Well, I'm not saying it would be negative. I'm just saying maybe that would get some more numbers for us. For our
negative numbers.
we would be having a board election at that January meeting.
Yeah.
And remind me, can people vote if I bring 2 people who have never been to a SACO meeting before, they can vote or they can't vote?
We'd have to make sure there are people who have been there at least once during
at least once year. Before. Okay.
Okay.
But I think that doesn't change the fact that we still want new people.
Quorum, and then we'd be able to vote for ourselves.
What's that, Louis?
If we all resigned for the board, would we count towards quorum and then we could still vote for ourselves?
Nice.
Louis, I love the way that your brain keeps working. Okay, well, So maybe if anybody else has really great ideas for a January program that they think would bring more people, feel free to let me know as soon as you have an idea. And we'll continue discussion about next steps for how to move forward with the transit center surplus land site over the next month. And a brief update with the nonprofit thing. We're getting ready to plunk down money with the lawyer to get things started. So that's where that sits at the very moment. Okay. Thanks everybody for participating. We really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone.
Yep. Have a great night, and we'll see you next month, if not sooner.